Hello, my friends. It's Monday, June 16th, 2025, and I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville, your Red State refugee, and welcome to the Radical Russ Show, coming to you from Rolla J Studios in my undisclosed mountain hideaway in the beautiful state of Jefferson region of Southern Oregon. On this week's smoke session, Trumpty Dumpty threw a birthday parade and nobody came because they were out by the millions protesting him for No King's Day. Yet another white Christian right-wing terrorist brings mayhem to Minnesota. Republicans solidify around perpetrating political violence while Democrats call on them to be nicer. Pundits seem surprised that cops are eager to be unleashed. America learns that Boise, Idaho is actually a city, and new details revealed in the 2024 Starlink election hacking conspiracy. But before we get to all of that, I've got three quick hits to get to. And first of all, so sad this last week that we lost two musical geniuses, both at the age of 82 years old, Sly Stone from Sly and the Family Stone, and Brian Wilson, the founder of the Beach Boys. And I'm telling you, folks, Questlove, Amir Thompson, has a great documentary out on the burden of black genius called Sly Lives. It's all about Sly Stone. Just recently came out. I highly encourage you to catch that documentary. It's on Hulu if you can catch it. There's also the great documentary on Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys. I forget the name of that one, but it's also well worth watching. And I was a little worried when I heard both of them dying, both of them age 82 years old, both of them musical geniuses, because we know these kind of things come in threes. And I thought to myself, who else is an 82-year-old musical genius? Oh, my God. Somebody put Paul McCartney in bubble wrap. Sir Paul McCartney is 82 years old as well. We can't lose all three of them. Other 82-year-old musicians out there, I don't know, musical genius necessarily is the proper appellation. Although, I don't know, George Benson, he's 82, definitely a musical genius. Jesse Coulter, Donnie Iris, the singer of Aaliyah. Ronnie Millsap, the country piano player. Maybe he's a musical genius. I am really fond of Ronnie Millsap. Dave Clark of the Dave Clark Five. Norman Greenbaum from Spirit in the Sky. John Hammond, the blues man. Johnny Rivers. Elvin Bishop. Jean-Luc Ponty, the flutist. Frida Payne, who sang Band of Gold. Gary Puckett from the Union Gap. Roger McGuinn from the Byrds. The Desert Rose Band. Bobby Gentry, the country singer. These are all musicians aged 82. Let's hope that they stay safe. Also got an update on my Tubi TV and Pluto TV free TV night. I know a lot of you out there are like me, trying to cut costs and maybe reduce your subscriptions to the streaming services like Netflix or Amazon Prime. I know I've had to do that, and that forces you to have to look for something to watch on free TV. So if you follow my hashtag free TV night, I'll be giving you my updates of what I've been watching throughout the week. And this week, we got to watch a movie called Shortcut to Happiness. Alec Baldwin directed this back in 2003. It features him and Jennifer Love Hewitt and Anthony Hopkins and Kim Cattrall and Dan Aykroyd. And you're thinking, man, with a cast like that, this has got to be great. No, it's a pretty bad movie. Baldwin's not much of a director, that's for sure. And I don't know who wrote this thing, but boy, it just limped along. The entire final third act is a courtroom scene against I don't know. Anthony Hopkins is Daniel Webster and Jennifer Love Hewitt is the devil and Dan Aykroyd is the judge sitting on a tractor. It was weird. I can't recommend it, but I can highly recommend two other films that I saw on Tubi TV, both documentaries. The first one's called The Green Girl, and it's about the actress Susan Oliver, who played the Green Girl in Star Trek, the Orion Slave Girl. But it goes on to show her amazing career through the 50s, 60s, 70s. She starred with everybody in everything. Great documentary, The Green Girl. And another great documentary out there called Transformer. Not Transformers, not the robot cars. No, not that big Michael Bay stuff. We're talking Transformer, which is the story of a male powerlifter and bodybuilder who transitions to female. And it's just ultra fascinating. And he's kind of not fully transitioned. He kind of lives in both worlds, and his family, his kids are really accepting, and the people in the powerlifting community seem really accepting as well. opened a lot of eyes in this documentary. So check it out. Transformer. It's on Tubi TV. And my final quick hit before we get to the serious news, you may have checked out my social media page at radicalruss.com on Blue Sky, and I post pictures from time to time, and I showed the pictures of my fingernails. Now, I've been painting my fingernails since the election, painting them black mostly in mourning for the democracy I love that is under attack by a fascist, right-wing, Russian-led Christian nationalist coup. So I've been painting my fingernails black, also just to do as a kind of a move for gender nonconformance. Just kind of a protest move here. Like, I can do this because I want to do this. And also, I'm a straight, white, middle-aged guy in a red county, so I want people on first glance to know I'm not one of them. I'm not one of them Trumpers. I'm not one of those guys that voted for any of this crap. So I've been changing it up a lot lately. I added a fingernail for Ukraine. They painted yellow and blue, and I told the story on a previous podcast how I met a Ukrainian who thought that was really cool. Well, for the Pride Month, I've painted my thumbs. My left thumb is a rainbow pride flag, and my right thumb is a trans flag, the blue, pink, and white trans flag. And then I've got an upside down American flag on another finger, and then I've got the 4 and the 7 written on my middle finger, so when I double flip you off, it says fuck 47. So got that all ready to go for the No Kings Day and went out to the protests, which were amazing. Talk a little bit about those in a second. But the one thing that's been really interesting about having my fingernails painted, especially now that I've got the prominent painting on the thumbnails of the gay pride flag, is how much commentary I get for that when I'm doing my ride shares and picking people up. First of all, the younger gay kids love it. Like, they just completely open up and start talking to me. I met this one kid, 19 years old, who openly gay, let me know he was gay, whose fingernails were longer than mine. He had a full manicure going, like, French tips and designs and stuff on it. So we had lots of stuff to talk about. The other was a young queer girl that I got to talk to while we were driving around. And even from the older folks that have talked about it, I had a guy, a trucker that I picked up at a truck stop, took him out to a dispensary to get some supplies. And the kind of guy, looks like a cross between, Chris Stapleton and Jelly Roll, like big, fat, bearded kind of guy, Carhartts, all muted colors, kind of guy you'd think wouldn't be too supportive of what I got going on. Absolutely not. Don't judge a book by the cover, folks. We had a great discussion of the events going on in this country and the politics around gay folks. I don't care. Hell, let people be what they be. That's what America's all about. I mean, it sounded like me, actually. So it's amazing who you can meet out here. And I think this one little act of defiance on my part, standing prominently for gay rights and trans rights in this red county, I hope more of you can take some courage from this and find your own way. You don't got to paint your nails, but find some way to stand out and let your fellow citizens know that you're on the right side of history. And the more that we see more of us out there that are on the right side of history, the easier it'll be for us to band together for the hard work that's coming up over the next few years. Our main story this week is the amazing juxtaposition of two events that took place this weekend. The No Kings Day protests that took place all around the United States and in a few places internationally, as well as Donald Trump's 79th birthday parade, supposedly a parade to honor the 250th birthday of the United States Army. But interestingly, there's no planned parades for the birthdays of the Navy, the Air Force, or the Marine Corps. Anyway, in Washington, D.C., he held his big rally for himself, trying to emulate his strongman autocrat friends with their big shows of military force, something that Dwight Eisenhower vetoed back in the day, saying that that's what little tin pot dictators do. That's what little weak countries do to try to pretend that they're strong. We're the biggest army in history. We don't need to parade that around to prove anything to anybody. And the No King's Day protests that took place all around the country were a great antidote to that fascist ideal being promoted from Washington, D.C. And I took the chance to go out to my No King's Day protest in Grants Pass, Oregon. Let's take you back 2 days and my live reporting from the courthouse steps in Grants Pass, Oregon.
Hey everybody, Radical Russ here at the No Kings Rally in Grants Pass, Oregon. We are in Josephine County, a county that voted 62 or 63% for Donald Trump, and the turnout here is incredible. We're all the way at the top of the protest here. It's gone past the first original block. So you're going to walk down the block here. In the distance, you can kind of see that church. And over there on the other side of the street, there was a small contingent of MAGA that came out to counter protest. And people from the No Kings protest have just gone to that side and overwhelmed their numbers. So both sides of the street covered with the No Kings protesters, all sorts of great signs out today. Deport Stephen Miller, traitorous, retarded, un-American, malignant parasite. We don't need no little dictators. I'll read you some of the signs for the podcast since you're not going to see this on video here. 4 dead in Ohio, reminding us of what happens when you militarize the National Guard to put down protests. You can hear all the honking from the people coming by. Like I said, this is a very red county in Oregon. A lot of people think of Oregon as a blue state, but down here on the south side, it's very, very red. So to see this much turnout is incredible. Got all sorts of great signs. Impeach Putin's puppet. Trump hood. Take from the poor, give to the rich. Donnie Two Dolls. That's one of my favorite ones so far. Donnie Two Dolls. And this nice lady has, in this house, we say please, thank you, and fuck Trump. Gotta love that one.
Did you see this one?
Yes?
No, right there.
Yes, Pamper the King. We love the Pamper the King one. Some very creative people out here. And got a sign, Donald Trump, the know-nothing president. Will you support the Constitution? I don't know. Is everyone entitled to due process? I don't know. Are you going to deport to Libya? I don't know. Do you support the Fifth Amendment? I don't know. Have you contacted El Salvador? I don't know. Possible tariff exemptions? I don't know. Oppose Ed Martin? I don't know. He just don't know. Morons are governing America. All my outrage can't fit on this sign. Let's go taco. Oh, the lady here who had my favorite sign, she's moved. But it said, hey taco, this is Nacho Kingdom. Yeah, you betcha. Hey taco, this is Nacho Kingdom. If Trump wants a big parade in his honor, all he has to do is resign. You're welcome. Hate will not make us great. Impeach, convict, remove, 8647, rebuild. No kings or dictators. 34 felony convictions, 1 fake charity, 1 fake university, 2 impeachments, 6 bankruptcies, 8 staff sentenced to prison, dozens of rape and harassment allegations, and 91 criminal charges. So I'm just hardly able to move through the crowd at this point because there are just so many people. We have a table here with Rogue Indivisible. Everything here in Josephine County and Grants Pass area centers around the Rogue River. So we hear Rogue this and Rogue that. And so Rogue Indivisible is here getting people to sign up. Stop the Tangerine Tyrants, War on Science and the Environment. Lots of homemade signs, people out here. This is the main drag in Grants Pass, Oregon. Highway 99, it's 6th Street. We're standing in front of the Josephine County Courthouse. We have a gentleman here who's been playing patriotic songs, too, on his accordion. There you can see some of the Trumpers. And the usual anti-abortion demonstrator who likes to demonstrate pictures of child snuff porn. ICE belongs in our drinks, not on our streets. Yes, indeed. Save the earth from MAGA.
So you've probably seen the video by now of the various rallies around the country. Million people showing up on the Boston Common, hundreds of thousands of people all across the United States. There had to have been at least 1,000, 2,000 people there at the Grants Pass rally. Meanwhile, or maybe a few hours later, I guess it was, Donald Trump was holding his little birthday parade in Washington, D.C., and when I got home from the protests, I was seeing some of the preliminary shots, and it was showing a lot of empty fields and barricades for lines that had no lines in them. And when I finally got to see some of the video from this, I was just stunned. And let me give you this one here. This is the troops marching in, and can you tell what song is being played there? Yeah, that's right. You're listening to the Creedence Clearwater Revival song, Fortunate Son, one of the top Vietnam War era protest songs that talks about how the senator's son gets out of military duty, gets to evade the draft. And John Fogerty in 2020 even said that Donald Trump is the ultimate fortunate son. These guys just have no understanding of lyrics or context. I mean, this is the guy that constantly plays YMCA, but then goes after the LGBTQ community. These are the kind of people that would play Hallelujah as a memorial song, or Every Breath You Take as a love song. Listen to the lyrics, fellas. Oh, this is what you get when you don't have humanities education. This is when you get when you just go for your MBA and skip all the literature. You have no understanding of art. And a quick word about the soldiers marching. The Russians are already teasing Donald Trump with this. They've put out a video that shows the North Korean troops marching in lockstep and the Russian troops marching in lockstep. And then it flips to the video of our troops lumbering along, sauntering along, out of step, not crisp. And folks, I'm telling you, as a high school drum major and a college marching band performer and someone who spent 6 years in the U.S. Army band marching parades every year, every week, every month, let me tell you something, folks. Marching's not hard. You learn it in the first week of basic training, and it's something that once it's ingrained in you, it's automatic. To this day, 40 years after my service in the U.S. Army, if I'm walking down the street and there's a song playing at about 120 beats a minute and my left foot isn't on the one and my right foot isn't on the two, I do an automatic shuffle to get myself in beat. I don't even notice I'm doing it. I've had other people go, what happened? Did you trip? Like, what? Oh, no, sorry, I had to get in step. That's how ingrained this gets into you. So those soldiers were sending you a message, Donald Trump. Those soldiers were sending you a message. They do not appreciate being used as political props. Okay, back to the Grants Pass No Kings protest. It's an interesting location where we have to set up for the protest. It's on this main 3-lane one-way drag that comes south off of Interstate 5. That's 6th Street. And it runs right by the Josephine County Courthouse. And across the street from the Josephine County Courthouse where we protest is the Josephine County Republican Party. So that's where the MAGAs like to set up across from us. And at best, there were maybe a dozen, maybe a couple dozen that showed up, but they were quickly overwhelmed and shouted down. But they did their best to try to provoke us. They did their best to try to provoke some sort of reaction that might get the left to look bad, including one guy with a MAGA flag, a guy about my age, kind of looked like me, white guy, white beard, with a MAGA Trump 1 flag, who would walk directly in front of the protesters down the street, yelling that Trump won and so forth, just trying to provoke people. And, well, here's what it sounded like.
Trump 2028!
So you don't support the Constitution, huh? So you don't support the Constitution, huh? One of the few Trumpers here grabbed himself a bullhorn and was wandering on the other side with a Trump flag, yelling, 77 million people voted for Donald Trump. So the young man with the box of fuck Trump hats for $25 just went over and stood by him the whole time, holding up the fuck until the guy finally had to retreat. It's a beautiful thing. Now the Trumpers have decided the cool thing to do is to drive slowly down 6th Street and do their little rolling coal trick where they belch black smoke all over the place. Yeah, that's the MAGA movement for you.
Okay, let's go back to Washington, D.C. with a look at Trump's tank parade. That is going to be the enduring image and sound of Donald Trump's grand 79th birthday parade, one lonely tank squeaking down Constitution Avenue in front of mostly empty bleachers. Oh, just perfect. Just perfect. Let me leave you with one more clip from our No Kings rally, an excellent speech given there at the steps of the Josephine County Courthouse.
Kimberly was going to mention our veterans, and we need to stand up for our veterans who are having their rights stripped away. The people who fought and died for this country. This is an all-out assault on our democracy. We need to move forward, and now I'm going to introduce Matt.
Guys, thank you so much. This is an amazing crowd. We're so glad that you're here. Hopefully everybody can see me. Can you all see me? Can you hear me? Fantastic. Guys, what a great turnout. We are so happy that you're here. So I've got a little speech I prepared for you. So there's a lot of signs I've seen that say we've been rejecting kings since 1776. Is that right? Yeah! Now, our founding fathers had a lot to say about kings and a monarchy. So folks, we gather today not in anger, but in clarity. Not in chaos, but in purpose. We are here to remind this nation and its leaders that America was not founded on the rule of one man, but on the rule of law. As Thomas Paine declared, in America, the rule of law is king. Now let me be clear, we are not subjects, we are citizens. We are not ruled, we are represented. From the very beginning, our founders were explicit in their rejection of a monarchy, of inherited power, of any man claiming divinity over our democracy. John Dickinson, one of those founders, made it plain, saying, "This president will be no dictator." 2/3 of representatives and the Senate may pass any law, notwithstanding his dissent, and he is removable and punishable for misbehavior. No man is above the law. No man is above the Constitution, no matter how gilded the stage or how loud the lie. There are no lords in Congress, and there is no crown in the Oval Office. Thomas Jefferson said, "There is scarcely an evil in these countries which may not be traced to their kings." Talking about Europe. We do not need kings. We need courage. When Benjamin Franklin was asked what form of government had been created, he said, "A republic, if you can keep it." We intend to keep it. Yeah! We will not be gaslit. We will not be ruled. We will rise. Trump has said we hate America. On the contrary, we believe in and love the real America. If they call us treasonous for these protests, remember that founders like Patrick Henry would stand with us and say, "If this be treason, make the most of it." Today, our values are under assault from walls, bans, fear-mongering, and the slow poison of authoritarianism. So we say it again, no kings!
No king!
No kings!
No king!
No kings!
No king!
Thank you very much.
Well done!
All right, folks, next we have one of those wonderful people.
Well, you know that the reaction to the No King's Day protests around the country, the millions who showed up to protest Trump, combined with the lackluster showing in his 79th birthday parade and so few people showing up for that, this has got to be an amazingly devastating day for a narcissist like Donald Trump. It's got to be an absolute ego killer. And so he is lashing out. He has reacted. He sent out this long post on his Truth Toilet the other day. I'll read to you from it, but I'm going to throw some of my commentary in between here. This is his reaction after the day on Saturday that proved to be so embarrassing for him. He says, quote, "Our nation's ICE officers have shown incredible strength, determination, and courage as they facilitate a very important mission, the largest mass deportation operation of illegal aliens in history." Which begs the question, do you know what the second largest mass deportation was, or at least the largest mass deportation in history up until now? Do you remember who did that? Yeah, a little fella named Adolf. Anyway, let's go on. Quote, "Every day, the brave men and women of ICE are subjected to violence, harassment, and even threats from radical Democrat politicians, but nothing will stop us from executing our mission and fulfilling our mandate to the American people." Threats from radical Democrat politicians. You mean a threat like this one?
And I'm not going to give you legal analysis on whether Gavin Newsom should be arrested, but he ought to be tarred and feathered. I'll say that.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. My mistake. That is the third highest ranking Republican official in the federal government, threatening the highest ranking public official in the state government of California, a Democrat who leads the largest blue state, threatening him with pouring hot boiling tar all over his body to subject him to third-degree burns and then cover that in feathers, the removal of which can cause even more damage as they try to take the tar that has melted onto the skin off. So much damage that it can easily cause someone's death. But yeah, it's the radical Democrat politicians who are making the threats here. Let me continue the Trump quote. "ICE officers are herewith ordered by notice of this truth to do all in their power to achieve the very important goal of delivering the single largest mass deportation program in history." But, don't do it at the agricultural fields or the meatpacking plants or the hotels owned by any of my billionaire donors. I continue, quote, "In order to achieve this, we must expand efforts to detain and deport illegal aliens in America's largest cities, such as Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York, where millions upon millions of illegal aliens reside." Now, it doesn't happen to be that they're all run by black mayors, too, right? Continuing, quote, "These and other such cities are the core of the Democratic power center where they use illegal aliens to expand their voter base, cheat in elections, and grow the welfare state, robbing good-paying jobs and benefits from hardworking American citizens." The core of the Democrat power center, openly calling for federal agents to come into democratically run cities, saying that they're trying to stop some sort of calculated fraud by getting illegal, undocumented people to vote and grow the welfare state to take good-paying jobs and benefits. Like picking strawberries. That's a whole lot of white people lining up to pick strawberries. Continued, quote, "These radical left Democrats are sick of mind, hate our country, and actually want to destroy our inner cities, and they are doing a good job of it. There is something wrong with them. That is why they believe in open borders, transgender for everybody, and men playing in women's sports. And that is why I want ICE, Border Patrol, and our great and patriotic law enforcement officers to focus on our crime-ridden and deadly inner cities and those places where sanctuary cities play such a big role. You don't hear about sanctuary cities in our heartland. First of all, I missed the memo about transgender for everybody. Do I have to go pick up my transgender, or is my transgender mailed to me? Transgender for everybody. But this is right down to it. They're talking about sacking American cities because of their political leaning, because of the way people exercise their democracy in cities. They don't like it, and they want to send force in to overcome that.
We are not going away. We are staying here to liberate this city from the socialist and the burdensome leadership that this governor and that this mayor have placed on this country.
That's the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Sec'y Kristi Noem, with her 8 action figure Barbie outfits, talking about liberating democratically controlled cities from the socialism put upon them by their mayor and their governor, people who were democratically elected to those positions. Folks, we need to wake up to the fact that the right wing has declared war on America. Now, continuing the Trump quote. I want our brave ICE officers to know that real Americans are cheering you on every day. The American people want our cities, schools, and communities to be safe and free from illegal alien crime, conflict, and chaos. Yeah, and this is something I got to call the media out on as well, because a lot of them are saying, oh, well, the deportation of illegal immigrants is highly popular. Donald Trump has a lot of support for deportation of illegal immigrants. Look, it depends on how you ask the question, because like I mentioned on the last podcast, the default American stance on illegal immigration is deport the bad ones, keep the good ones. And everybody in their own mind knows who the bad ones are and who the good ones are. Most of us think the bad ones are people committing crimes, people committing rapes. That's bad stuff. Let's get them out of here. But Donald Trump conflates that. MAGA conflates that with all immigrants. This is a pogrom. This is an attack. This is ethnic cleansing in our country. They want to get rid of the brown people, and they want to subjugate the white people who like the brown people. I'll continue the Trump quote. That's why I've directed my entire administration to put every resource possible behind this effort and reverse the tide of mass destruction migration that has turned once idyllic towns into scenes of third world dystopia. Mass destruction migration, dystopias. I've been to Portland. I've been to Los Angeles. I've been to these cities that he says are dystopias. And the only problems these cities have are problems that are born of Republicans refusing to have a decent safety net or provide decent jobs and wages to people or to provide affordable housing to people, stuff that can't be fixed at the city level or the state level, something we need federal assistance for. Migrants are making this country great. They're picking the strawberries. They're washing the dishes. They're making the beds in the hotel rooms. They're nannying for your kids. They're cleaning up the landscape. Immigrants make this country great. I'll continue his quote. Our federal government will continue to be focused on the re-migration of aliens to the places from where they came and preventing the admission of anyone who undermines the domestic tranquility of the United States. Well, I gotta say, I'm a little worried about this re-migration of people to places where they came from, because, folks, I can't speak French. I can't speak French, and that's where my people came from, France. Well, some of them came from Britain. I suppose you can send me back to Britain. I do speak English okay. There's a little German in there, and meine Deutsche ist sehr schlecht, but I could probably get by. Oh, wait, you're not talking about us white people where we came from, because, you know, my Navajo friends, my Comanche friends, my Nez Perce friends, they're all where they came from. Yeah, this is where they came from. And those Mexicans down in LA that are waving the Mexican flags, they're where they came from too. 55% of Mexico was taken away by the United States in the 1800s. They didn't cross the border crossed them. concluding the Trump quote, "To ICE, FBI, DEA, ATF, the Patriots at Pentagon, and the State Department, you have my unwavering support. Now go get the job done." End quote.
Why are you ordering ICE to target Democratic inner cities? What's behind that?
I don't know what you're saying.
You did a post last night where you said you want ICE to really target Democratic...
Yeah, I want them to focus on the cities, because the cities are where you really have what's called sanctuary cities, and that's where the people are. I look at New York, I look at Chicago. I mean, you got a really bad governor in Chicago and a bad mayor, but the governor's probably the worst in the country, Pritzker. But I look at how that city has been overrun by criminals, and New York and L.A. Look at L.A. L.A., those people weren't from L.A. They weren't from California, most of those people, many of those people. And, that's a focus. Biden allowed 21 million people to come into our country. Of that, vast numbers of those people were murderers, killers, people from gangs, people from jails. They emptied their jails out into the U.S. Most of those people are in the cities, all blue cities, all Democrat-run cities, and they think they're going to use them to vote. It's not going to happen.
Is there anybody in the mainstream media who can ever call Donald Trump a liar to his face, that can ever rebut him or fact-check him in real time? 21 million illegals poured across the border during the Biden administration, and most of them were rapists and criminals, and we had a terrible crime wave through our Democrat-run blue cities. Crime was rampant. It's a dystopia. Oh, my God, the world is coming to an end. Then I went and checked the facts and figures on this, because you know me, I look shit up. In 2024, we had 5,000 fewer homicides than we had in 2023. 5,000 fewer murders in 2024 from 2023. And I think, if I remember correctly, Joe Biden was president back then. That was a decline of 15.6% nationwide in the homicide rate while Joe Biden was president. And that was down 13% the year before. And that was down 6% the year before that. So we had, during Joe Biden's term, consecutive years, year after year after year, where the murder rate went down. Going to the Democratic-run cities, okay, Philadelphia, the murder rate was down 40%. New Orleans, the murder rate was down 38%. Washington, D.C., down 29%. Memphis, Tennessee, down 23%. Baltimore, down 24%. Kansas City, Missouri, down 20%. Los Angeles, down 15%. New York, down 7.3%. and down 15% over the past 2 years. Chicago, down 7% and 29% over the past 3 years. In 63 cities with a population of greater than 250,000, the murder rate was down 15%. And in 246 cities with a population under 250,000, the murder rate was down 19%. So, these 21 million, quote, illegals that Joe Biden let run rampant throughout our country don't seem to be very good at their murdering. They seem to have a problem accomplishing the murdering. The murdering is way, way down. Oh, and what about the rest of the crimes? What about the rest of the crimes that these lazy, ignorant, criminal rapists are coming across the border to commit? Well, let's see. Property crime is down 8.6%. And in particular, auto theft is down 21.4%. Rape is down 4.5%. Robberies are down 1.1%. And aggravated assault is down 3.7%. This violent, crime-ridden dystopia that Donald Trump believes is occurring throughout all of the blue Democrat-run cities is not happening. He continues to try to fool the rubes in Pig's Knuckle, Arkansas, that there's some terrible dystopia happening in American cities, when in fact American cities have never been safer. And you've got to question about Stephen Miller and Donald Trump talking about all these lazy, ignorant, criminal lawbreakers out there, when all the ICE raids are happening at workplaces and school graduations and courthouses. So much for being lazy, ignorant, and lawbreaking. The other major news from this weekend was the horrific story of the political assassinations that took place in Minnesota, where a right-winger, one of these MAGA types, cop fetishist type, owns a security company, went to the home of the Speaker Emerita of the Minnesota House and shot her and her husband dead. Multiple gunshot wounds. And then we're getting the reports out today that he went to two other legislators' homes and was unable to find anyone there before he went to another home, the fourth home, and shot at another Democratic legislator and his wife. 9 bullets for him, 7 bullets for her, or 8 bullets for her, 9 bullets for him, 8 bullets for her. She dived on top of their 12-year-old daughter to save her life, protect her from the gunfire. And so we turn to our political leaders for their reaction to this horrific political violence. We'll start with a statement from Donald Trump, president, who said, quote, "Well, it's a terrible thing. I think he's a terrible governor. I think he's a grossly incompetent person, but I may call him. I may call other people too." End quote. That was Trump's reaction to a question as to whether or not he would call the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, to coordinate on what was happening at the time when there was still a manhunt underway for this killer. And Trump, being constitutionally incapable of having any empathy for any human being, physically unable to frame anything in a way but a political argument, to have him go to his grab bag of he's a terrible person, he's a terrible governor. Same thing he said earlier about J.B. Pritzker in Illinois, the same thing he says about Gavin Newsom in California, and the only thing they have in common is being Democrats. They have declared war on us. And understanding that, it is beyond depressing to hear this reaction from Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of the Democrats in the House.
The targeted and tragic attack directed at 2 Minnesota elected officials is disgusting, and it should disgust anyone who has any decency in this country. There are so-called leaders in America, in elected and appointed office, who are creating a climate of violence, making it clear to some of their supporters that it should be open season on public officials. They are targeting, arresting, prosecuting, and manhandling people who are elected to serve their communities and going after them simply for doing their jobs. Enough. Take some responsibility for the climate that you have created and change course immediately.
Wow, Hakeem. These folks sound like terrible people. I wonder who they are. Do they hold any particular office in the United States government? Or do they share any common beliefs or common ideologies? Is there something about their identities that maybe we could identify these people that are responsible for escalating this violent rhetoric, this political violence? Is there somebody you could name, Hakeem? Is there any names you could put out there? Because God damn it, you know, if this was happening the other way around, they would be calling the radical left Democrats or instigating violence, because they're saying that now. Trump and the Republicans now talk about the Democrats and violence and the left and violence and violence and the Democrats are violent. There's no need to tiptoe around this anymore, Hakeem. They have declared war on us. Let me give you the actual quote that they said. They said, "We are in the midst of a second American Revolution, which will be bloodless if the left allows it." End quote. They are counting on your fecklessness, Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, Democratic Party. They are counting on you rolling over and taking it. They are counting on you writing strongly worded letters with 8 strongly worded questions. Stop asking them to do the right thing. Stop with this, you need to change course. They're not going to change course. Nothing's going to stop them but political force. And if that doesn't stop them, it's going to take actual force. Can we stop already with this both sideserism on the issue of political violence in the United States? The FBI, at least before Kash Patel got a hold of it, was telling us that the number one domestic terror threat in the United States of America is white Christian nationalism. It's right-wing violence we have to fear. And you only need to take a second to just recall all of the incidents of right-wing political targeted violence that we've seen in this country. The shooting of Gabby Giffords, the kidnapping plot against Gretchen Whitmer, the hammer attack against Paul Pelosi, the arson attack against Josh Shapiro, and going back through our history, the history of lynchings in this country. Lynchings weren't a left-wing phenomenon. That was right-wing. The race massacres, like the Tulsa race massacre, whenever black people would get a thriving community going, white mobs would torch it and kill all the people. That was right-wing violence. The mass shooters we've seen lately, the Pittsburgh synagogue shooter, the Latino Walmart shooter, the black people that shot up in the Buffalo grocery, all of the shooters espousing extreme right-wing ideologies that at least used to be extreme, but now are somewhat mainstream on the right. You see the Proud Boys instigating violence when they come into towns like Portland to go against left-wing protesters. The Oklahoma City bombing. My God, Timothy McVeigh, right out of the right-wing playbook, Oklahoma City bombings. And the ADL actually documented that from 2022 to 2024, for an entire 3-year period there, all 61 politically targeted killings were from the right. Now, you bring this up and the right-wingers go, oh, well, what about Steve Scalise in the congressional softball game? Okay, there's one. Yep, you get one. That is one. That was a left-winger. That was a left-winger who went out specifically to shoot at a Republican because he was a Republican. You got another? I'll wait. Go ahead. Oh, okay. Let's do the anti-Semitic ones, right? The Israel embassy staffers that were attacked, that were murdered. The guy in Colorado that was using a flamethrower to attack people that were protesting for Gaza. But is that really targeted left-wing violence against right-wing politicians? No, it's not. And is anybody on the left wing saying things like we ought to treat them more violent? We shouldn't be gentle with them, like Trump said to the cops a while back? Is there anybody on the left that is calling for killing people graveyard dead? We'll get to that clip here in a little bit. No. The calls for violence, the rhetoric about destruction and devastation all come from the right. Oh, let's give you another one. How about Luigi Mangione shooting Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare? Can we count that as left-wing violence against the right? Not really. That's a business issue. That's the problem with the insurance industry. You didn't target the guy for being a Republican. Oh, I know, the Trump assassination, quote unquote. The Trump assassination. Yeah, but that guy was killed, and it seems like everything in his background pointed to the fact that he was a right-winger, upset that Trump wasn't right-wing enough. So don't let them have this both sides that they're trying to paint these issues when it comes to the Minnesota assassinations, because the right wing knows they've got a violence issue. It's ingrained in their politics. It's what they're all about. You'll hear them say things like, well, yeah, Democrats better understand who owns all the guns in this country. Why? Why? Because Republicans are planning on murdering Democrats? Don't let them espouse that kind of rhetoric online or in their little t-shirts or whatever. Better know who has all the guns. Why? Do you plan on murdering people? Call them out on it. They are pro-murder. They want to murder fellow Americans. Just look at their culture. And folks, I was raised in Idaho. redneck cowboy gun culture. Everything on the right is arranged around the culture of death. They ironically call themselves pro-life, but they're all about being a death cult. Check the NRA and all the gun magazines and the advertisements. Here's your man card. Get yourself a gun. Got to protect yourself. Got to kill something. And the T-shirts they wear, like the one that says, well, if you're going to burn the flag, wrap yourself in it first. Because anyone who protests deserves to be burned to death. Or, God, guns, and guts. That's what made America free. Because, you know, we had the guns and we could use them against the Native Americans and steal their land. And we had the guns so we could force the black people to build stuff. Or that song, try that in a small town. Oh, try what? Try exercising my constitutional rights and I will face violence for it? Or even the phrase, make America great again, which on its face you would think is neutral. But if you really think about it, make America great again is a provocative thing to say to anybody who's not a straight white man in this country. Make America great again? America has only achieved a recent amount of greatness from 2015 to 2022. From the Obergefell ruling that allowed gay marriage to be legal to the Dodd decision in 2022 that for the first time in American history took rights away from people. That little period, 2015 to 2022, I could say America was pretty darn great. If you go any time before 2015 and you were taking something away from women, from gays, from blacks, from immigrants, make America great again. Make, force. We are going to compel America to go back to a state it was in before all you people had rights. That's a provocative and violent statement. Some of the other t-shirts, don't dare date my daughter, you know, the macho dad t-shirts, you know, the implicit threat being, if you try to have sex with my daughter, I'll kill you. Or hell, every goddamn thing they got as far as that has a Punisher sticker on it. Like the MAGA who was wandering through our parade with his big Trump Punisher flag on it. Every time I see those Punisher skulls, I just want to ask the guy, what does that stand for? What does that mean? What's that skull mean to you? It means you worship killing. It means you worship death. It means you're a part of a death cult. And nowhere is this more better highlighted than in the response of Mormon Utah Senator Mike Lee to the Minnesota assassinations. He had put up a post on X, the Nazi platform, with a picture of the assassin at the door. And his post says, this is what happens when Marxists don't get their way. Trying to say that this guy, this cop-humping, MAGA-loving right-winger was somehow a fault of the left. And then he doubled down. He posted another one that was a picture of the guy and then the same picture he showed before. And then he wrote, Nightmare on Walz Street. Except he mispronounced Governor Walz, or misspelled Governor Walz's last name as Waltz, but Nightmare on Wall Street. Because, you know, it's a nightmare for the Democratic governor when right-wingers go around and start shooting his Democratic politicians. And we need Chuck Schumer, the Democrats, and for that matter, the Republicans in the Senate, to call for his resignation. He is openly celebrating a political assassination. I don't think Joseph Smith would approve. I don't think Brigham Young would approve. I don't. Mormons, come get your boy, because I don't know what to say. But this is a right-wing Republican problem. Violence is ingrained in their system. You hear them talking about Second Amendment remedies all the time. And folks, this is why they don't like democracy. They don't like democracy because they know they're outnumbered. And in that fear, that's where they come up with their great replacement theory. Oh my God, they're bringing in the illegals to take over. Oh no, they're going to outvote us. Well, first of all, there's nothing stopping y'all from having more babies. Why aren't you having more white babies? Come on, white folks, get to fucking. Have some more babies. Oh, what's that? It's too expensive to raise a kid these days. And childcare is too expensive and college is too expensive. And Gee, I wonder whose fault that is. Anyway, they have this big problem. They're going to be overtaken by democracy. They'll be outvoted because they realize their position is a minority position. They realize they are a shrinking demographic. And their fear is that they, as a minority, will be treated as badly as they treat minorities. That's the white fear underlying all of this. They hate democracy. They hate diversity. They're terrified of anyone who doesn't look, talk, think, dress, breathe, and worship like they do. They're all a bunch of cowards. And that's why they run to the violence. That's why they love to immerse themselves in Punisher skulls and man cards and violent imagery. Because deep down, they're weak. Deep down, they're impotent. They know they're outnumbered. They know they're dinosaurs. They know their ideology is fading. They can see the declining attendance in the church pews. They know their end is near. And we need to be strong to make sure to put them down. Figuratively, not endorsing violence until it comes time to defend ourselves. I will meet violence with violence, but I won't instigate it. With the immense success of the No Kings rallies and the immense failure of Donald Trump's 79th birthday and the shocking news of the assassinations in Minnesota, it's hard to remember that we started this weekend with a sitting U.S. senator being manhandled by the goons controlled by the Secretary of Homeland Security.
I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the Secretary, because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your heads off.
How many of our ICE agents have been doxxed for doing their duty?
That's Sec'y Kristi Noem going on with her press conference as if nothing is happening, and directly in her eyesight, she can see the sitting U.S. Senator from the state of California, the state that she is currently in, Alex Padilla, a Latino man, being forced out by FBI, being pushed to the ground, and being handcuffed for trying to ask a question in a federal building at a public press conference. And this has kind of fallen off the radar because of the assassinations and the tanks and all the parades and stuff. But this here is another declaration of war against the left. And the people out there, I'm seeing a lot of the punditry reacting to this, and they say, well, if they can do this to a sitting U.S. senator, they can do this to anyone. Well, yeah, no shit. It's been being done to us for years. It's pretty nice you're starting to discover that all cops are bastards, but hey, we've known this for years out here. Let me get to some of the Democratic response to this manhandling of one of their own senators. Let's start with the leader of the Senate, Chuck Schumer.
Mr. President, I just saw something that sickened my stomach. The manhandling of a United States senator. We need immediate answers to what the hell went on. I yield the floor.
We need immediate answers. As if there's any question as to what went on. As if we didn't have 3 or 4 different video angles of exactly what happened. Once again, Chuck Schumer asking the Republicans to be nice. Asking, oh, won't you please do something about this? Gosh, it's terrible what you did to a senator. Won't somebody give us some answers to our questions? My God. Let's turn to Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman. He released a statement that said, in part, quote, "We must collectively turn the temperature down and find a better way forward for our nation," end quote. Yes, collectively, because it's all our fault. Oh, yes, we're all raising the temperatures. Both sides are doing it. Senator, go back about 10 minutes in my podcast and listen to all of the right-wing violence that's been going on in this country, and then come back to me and tell us about how we all need to collectively turn the temperature down. My God. And how about Elissa Slotkin, a senator from New York, Senator Slotkin? Maybe you've got something Something to say?
Hey, everybody. I just wanted to respond to what went on today with Senator Padilla from California. This was a senator in his own state, in a federal building, doing his job, providing that oversight. The behavior was deeply uncalled for. There is simply no excuse for that kind of behavior. And now this is a really big moment for the Secretary of Homeland Security, right? What do adults do when their subordinates screw up, handle something inappropriately? They get on the phone, they go out in public, they apologize, and they talk about how they're going to handle this kind of behavior. And I think the reason why this issue really just spread so quickly is because if they can manhandle a senior senator like that, they can literally do this to anybody, right? That's why it resonates. And it looks like an authoritarian response to the basic actions of a senator. So, Secretary of Homeland Security, it's on you. What are you going to do to respond? Be an adult.
Yeah, Kristi Noem, it's on you. Won't you do the right thing? Won't you be a good Republican and do the right thing? I, as a sitting U.S. Senator, have absolutely no power to do anything, so I'm calling on you to do the right thing. Oh, my God. Yeah, that's it. Let's call on Republicans to act like adults. I'm sure that will work. And, again, here's another one. So glad you noticed that if they can do that to a senator, they can do that to anybody, because they have been doing that to everybody. Maybe you would have noticed that if you weren't so busy voting for Kristi Noem to have that job, Elissa Slotkin. Yes, that's right. 7 Democrats voted to approve Kristi Noem, the puppy killer, knowing she was a puppy killer. They voted to approve her as the Secretary of Homeland Security. Elissa Slotkin was one of the ones that voted for her. John Fetterman was another one that voted for her, as well as Hassan, Kane, Kim, Peters, and Shaheen. 7 Democrats voted for Kristi Noem, and 5 Democrats didn't bother to vote against her. That would be Schatz from Hawaii, Smith, Tina Smith from Minnesota, Raphael Warnock from Georgia, and sad, both of Oregon's Democratic senators, Jeff Merkley and Ron Wyden, couldn't be bothered to vote against Kristi Noem. I sure hope that an opposition party evolves someday to take on this fascist white Christian nationalist coup that is committing the second civil war in this country. They're already shooting our politicians. They're already calling for us to be run down in the streets. They're already talking about occupying Democrat-run cities to relieve them of the socialism being installed by their duly elected officials. It's about time Democrats start to get on the ball and start to get on their war footing while we still can. The No Kings protests this weekend were amazing, with millions showing out. The latest figures somewhere from 5 million to 11 million, depending on which estimate you want to believe. But certainly the largest political protest in American history, at least in the past a few decades, and peaceful, largely peaceful all throughout the nation. Just very little report of any sort of violence coming out. And the reports we do have of violence coming out, we do have the shooting in Salt Lake. There was a shooter at the Salt Lake No Kings rally who, and this is such a sad story, there were 2 peacekeepers in the crowd, volunteers to try to help keep the crowd peaceful, I guess. But they were armed. They were armed with handguns. And the shooting takes place in Salt Lake, and the suspect runs away. These 2 guys get a bead on him and see him trying to crouch amongst the people. And as he comes charging out at him, one of the peacekeepers takes out his pistol and fires 3 shots. Turns out one of the shots hit a bystander and killed him. So once again, we're kind of this good guy with a gun idea that you're going to be the hero, takes a lot of risk in the chance that you're going to kill an unarmed bystander. I can't imagine how that peacekeeper feels now, knowing that he killed someone trying to save people. And it turns out that the assailant lost track of his pack. He had a AR-15 with in his pack there, and one of the peacekeepers saw he was distracted and grabbed the pack and ran off with it, and that's when the cops got called in to take the guy down. So there was that violence. There was also violence at the LA protests, and interestingly enough, though, reports from NBC News, there was a reporter covering it, and he's showing, like, here I am amongst all these thousands of people, and it's totally peaceful, totally peaceful. And mere 30 seconds after he says that, the cops start moving in and shooting projectiles, rubber bullets and tear gas and such. The people instigating the violence are the cops. The cops are the ones instigating the violence in these cases. And it got pretty funny because as the LA Sheriff's Department was moving in on one side and the LAPD was moving in on the other side, they ended up hitting each other with their rubber bullets. They ended up shooting at each other in the crossfire. And then in Portland, of course, there was the ICE building on McAdam. Protesters were facing it, and they brought in feds, and they started shooting tear gas and such. Bottles and rocks being thrown and so forth. And it's not as if people don't have reason to protest ICE. We've got these guys not identifying themselves, wearing masks, refusing to give badge numbers, picking people up at high school graduations and court appointments and their workplaces and the fields. And now we've got the Minnesota assassin going out there impersonating a cop. So who is supposed to believe anybody when they say they're a cop these days, when they won't wear the uniform, when they won't identify themselves? This is what ICE has wrought on this country. And yet we have Democrats that are praising ICE. Yes, that's right. Praising ICE. There was a vote that came up in the House, and it was this little resolution to condemn anti-Semitism, the anti-Semitic attacks that happened with the flamethrower and stuff. But tucked into it also was this thank you, ICE, for protecting the homeland, blowjob type of language. Oh, fluffing ICE up, making them feel all good. And 75 Democrats voted for that. I get politics is messy, and maybe you don't want to be seen as voting against something that says anti-Semitism is bad, but there were plenty of Jewish Democrats who voted against it because they realized that once again, the right wing does not give a shit about anti-Semitism. They give a shit about using Jews and using anti-Semitism as a wedge issue on the left. They use it as a political issue. They're using Jewish people as props in this circumstance. But 75 Democrats couldn't see through that, including, once again, Janelle Bynum of Oregon. That's right, Bynum of Oregon. We've called her out before on a couple of her other votes where she seems to be defying the will of what blue state Democrats in her district would support. But there are others. Glusenkamp Perez of Washington, she voted for it. Gray, Harder, Min, Panetta, Ruiz, Swalwell, Eric Swalwell, really? Torres, Tran, and Whitesides of California, they all voted for it. Horsford from Nevada voted for it. And Schreier from Washington voted for it. Democrats, you cannot vote for something that praises the Gestapo. But very little violence aside from that. But of course, the right wing wants to paint that as, the Democrat-run cities overwhelmed by violence. And they've done this so much. They've hyped up this idea that we're in imminent danger of civilizational collapse
if you resist lawful orders,
exercise their protest rights.
Let me
that
be
the
very
sheriff
clear
in
about
Brevard
that.
County,
if
Florida,
you block an intersection
came
or a
out
roadway
to a
in Brevard
lectern
County,
that says Florida is the anti-riot
if you
state.
flee arrest, you're going to go to jail
these remarks
because we are going to run you down and put you in jail.
Simmer down now, boss hog. Your 300-pound ass ain't running down anybody.
If you try to mob rule a car in Brevard County, gathering around it, refusing to let the driver leave, in our county, you're most likely going to get run over. and dragged across the street.
You hear that, citizens of Florida? If you get caught up in a protest and people are surrounding your car, the sheriff says it's okay for you to murder them. You can run over them and murder them, or at least maim them seriously. But yeah, it's a both sides problem as far as the political violence goes. Yeah, both sides. Yeah, they're all calling on political violence. Sure. Mm-hmm.
If you spit on us, you're going to the hospital and in jail. If you hit one of us, you're going to the hospital and jail, and most likely get bitten by one of our big, beautiful dogs that we have here.
Keep that in mind, folks. If you approach a cop who's wearing full riot gear and Kevlar body armor and is holding a shield and has a helmet on with a face mask, and he's got a billy club in one hand and a gun in the other, and a little bit of your spit manages to fleck on him when you're shouting, or you accidentally brush up or push up against him, they're going to seriously injure you and maim you and put you in the hospital and sick dogs on you to attack you. Because, there's a both sides political violence problem.
Throw a brick, a firebomb, or point a gun at one of our deputies, we will be notifying your family where to collect your remains at, because we will kill you graveyard dead.
We will kill you graveyard dead. Well, so much for to protect and serve, huh? Cops saying if you throw a brick at them, they will shoot and kill you. You will be killed. We got cops openly talking about murdering citizens. So tell me again about this both sides political rhetoric, about this both sides are inflaming the violence, raising the temperature, so to speak. How does a cop feel that he can get away with saying this? That it's just okay to talk about murdering citizens? Well, I have a theory. And part of that theory has to do with the way our media portrays policing. The propaganda that we are all relentlessly subject to since they put Dragnet on the air in the 60s, where the cops are eager to solve crimes and going after the lawbreakers and all of the myths that were taught about policing in America. There's one story here that I think really exemplifies this, because when the media reports on cops, I've talked about this before, how they use something called the exonerative tense. How when, cops shoot people, it's suddenly a gun went off and a bullet lodged into somebody, and there's no direct description of who did it or how it happened, right? We always let the cops off the hook. So there's a story out of Chicago that I got to get to about a cop being shot. And I picked this up on ABC News from a tweet that came through, or a post, I should say, because I'm not on Twitter. I'm only on Blue Sky. But it said, a 36-year-old police officer who was a mother to a young daughter has been shot and killed while on duty in Chicago, authorities said. Okay. Woman cop shot and killed on duty. Then I go to the ABC News website to actually read the whole story, and it says, the headline, Chicago police officer Crystal Rivera, mom to young daughter, shot and killed while on duty. A 36-year-old police officer who was a mother to a young daughter and a four-year veteran of the Chicago Police Department has been shot and killed while on duty in Chicago. Blah, blah, blah. There's a statement from Governor Pritzker. The shooting occurred at approximately 9:50 p.m. Thursday when officers attempted to conduct an investigatory stop on a male suspect, according to the Chicago Police Department. Officers approached the suspect. The individual immediately fled on foot into a nearby building. Law enforcement subsequently pursued the suspect into the building, but were confronted by another individual who was armed inside the residence where the suspect fled. Authorities continued, quote, the armed offender fled the residence and was taken into custody, police said. An officer sustained a gunshot wound and was taken to an area hospital where she succumbed to her injuries, end quote. Chicago Police Superintendent Larry Snelling said she lost her life tragically doing the job she loved, end quote. He continued, quote, that was one of the things that her mother said. She loved her job and the way that it worked. It was evidence that she did love her job and she wanted to make Chicago a better place, he said at a news conference. An additional officer sustained an injury to the wrist and was taken to the hospital in fair condition, police said, but no other injuries were reported. 3 firearms were located on the scene and multiple people were taken into custody, the police said. Overall, between January 1st and April 30th, 16 police officers in the United States have been feloniously killed in the line of duty, and firearms were used in 75% of those incidents, according to statistics compiled by the U.S. Department of Justice. The leading circumstances surrounding officers' deaths included activities related to responses to unlawful or suspicious activities, pursuits, and traffic stops, according to the Justice Department. Okay, so here we have this nice long story about the 36-year-old mother, police officer, killed in the line of duty, shot after they chased after a suspect. The suspect fled to a building, and when we got to the building, cops got to the place, and another person had a gun that pointed at them. She was shot and succumbed to her injuries and died. Okay. This is terrible. And then the statistics about how cops are killed on the line of duty. Feloniously killed. Oftentimes reacting to unlawful and suspicious activities. You know, with criminals killing these cops, right? Wrong. Wrong, because nowhere in this story from ABC News do they tell you that this woman was shot by another cop. She was shot in the back by one of the other cops that was pursuing this suspect. And at no time did the suspect they were pursuing have a gun. And when they got to the other suspect who did have a gun, he never fired it. Everything in this story is made to lead you to believe that this poor woman lost her life in the line of duty, shot by some terrible criminal, and there's terrible criminals out there that want to do nothing more than kill cops, when it was a cop that killed another cop. Let me give you the actual statement from the Chicago Police Department. Here's the official statement. On Thursday, June 5th, 2025, at approximately 9:50 p.m., Chicago Police Department officers assigned to the 6th District Tactical Team were on patrol when they attempted to conduct an investigatory stop on a male suspect in the 8200 block of South Drexel Avenue. As officers approached, the suspect fled on foot into a nearby building. The officers pursued the suspect into the building, where they were confronted by an armed offender inside of the residence in which the offender fled. During the encounter, an officer discharged his weapon. The armed offender fled the residence and was taken into custody. An officer sustained a gunshot wound and was taken to an area hospital where she succumbed to her injuries. An additional officer sustained an injury to the wrist and was taken to the hospital in fair condition. No additional injuries were reported. 3 firearms were located on scene. The investigative response team is investigating, and COPA was notified. Notice how they did that? They were confronted by an armed intruder. An officer discharged his weapon. An officer suffered a gunshot wound. But never do they connect the fact that the officer discharging his weapon was the one who shot the cop in the back. So the cops put out their little statement of propaganda with absolutely no active voice as to who shot whom, and ABC News just picks up their pencil like the good stenographers there are and just write it down in the full exonerative tense. If you'd like to know the real story, you can go to the Chicago Sun-Times website, which I will have linked in my show notes, where the headline properly says, Chicago police officer was unintentionally shot and killed by partner during foot pursuit. And the subhead, Officer Crystal Rivera was excited to celebrate her daughter's 11th birthday this weekend, but Rivera's life was tragically cut short late Thursday when she was fatally shot in the back by a bullet fired by another officer. It's this type of propaganda that hides the fact that cops are inept sometimes, that always does its best to present the police in the best light, that always does its best to use the passive voice to avoid accountants for anybody's actions. But we got some hungry puppies in the background, folks. So sorry about that. We got some hungry puppies. I'll close with this by noting that we should stop calling cops first responders. I get this from Chad Loader online. We should stop calling cops first responders because that's their way of inserting themselves into a frame that includes people we like EMTs and medics and ambulance drivers and firefighters. This is their way of laundering their reputation to put them in the same category as people we like. Police are not first responders. Hell, I don't even like calling them law enforcement, because there ain't no song called "Fuck the Law Enforcement." That's the country baseline. That means it's time for our Boycott Idaho segment, the segment where I remind you of all the reasons to avoid the handmade state. Now, up to 70 reasons. You can find them all at radicalruss.com/Idaho. But unfortunately, for the second week in a row, I got no reason to boycott Idaho. I'm actually kind of proud of Idaho these last couple of weeks. Last week, it was my hometown, Nampa, Canyon County, there having their second annual Pride event, which... to have a Pride event in Canyon County is remarkable. And then this weekend, their turnout for the No Kings rally in Boise, Idaho. This is a meme that's going across the internet like wildfire of people comparing the sparse attendance at Donald Trump's 79th birthday parade with the massive attendance, this shot of the crowd in Boise where it's just people, just mass amount of people. And the folks online are like, even Boise, Idaho turned out. Oh my God, even Boise, Idaho. Folks, Boise's a big city. I think maybe people, out on the coast, West Coast and East Coast don't recognize how big a city Boise is now. It's not some hick throwback small town anymore. The Boise, Nampa, Meridian, Caldwell metro area is the size of Gaza, and it has about 850,000 people in it. It's huge. The three largest cities in Idaho are in that area: Boise, Meridian, and Nampa, in that order. 850,000 in basically the Treasure Valley area. If you go out to the combined statistical area on the census, which ranges from Ontario, Oregon, on the western border, to Mountain Home, where they've got an Air Force base there. If you do that combined statistical area, it's the 66th largest metro area in the United States, with 935,000 people. We're talking along the same size as Des Moines, Iowa, or Little Rock, Arkansas, or South Bend, Indiana. We're talking getting close to the range of Madison, Wisconsin, Chattanooga, Tennessee, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Omaha, Nebraska, Allentown, Pennsylvania. So Boise is becoming a fairly big city now. And politically speaking, the Democrats all live in Boise. Pretty much Boise, and a bit in Haley, maybe some up in Coeur d'Alene. So it wasn't surprising to me at all that just about every progressive in Idaho showed up for this thing. But I would also counsel people to understand that another part of these demonstrations might be MAGAs with buyer's remorse. The kind of people that voted for Trump, but just because they just hate Democrats so much. But I think we can convince them that they're going to hate autocracy and fascism more. So don't write off these red states that have big blue populations in their cities. I want to keep reminding folks that this is not a red state, blue state battle that we're in. This cold civil war that we're fighting is a rural, urban civil war. For the Radical Rant today, I'm going to take a little visit to the conspiracy theory rabbit hole. So if you're not into conspiracy theories, you might just want to fast forward to the end or skip to the next podcast. But my lady love firmly believes that the election was hacked. She firmly believes there's no way that Donald Trump swept all 7 swing states and the entire nation swung to Trump as a whole. And when you look at these reactions at the No Kings protests and so many people coming out, does make you wonder how in the world he pulled this off. How in the world did 77 million people vote for Donald Trump and elect him president again? And I'm loath to go down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole because I always have, one standing belief about conspiracy theories is that the more people have to be in on the conspiracy, the less likely the conspiracy is true, right? Because there's just trying to keep so many people quiet. Nobody's going to snitch. Nobody's going to anonymously leak. Nobody's going to succumb to the possibility of book deals or furthering their careers. Trying to keep something that massive secret just seems impossible to me. But I've been checking out some of these theories, and the more I read about them, the more concerns I have. I'm not fully yet ready to dive into the conspiracy as a whole, but this definitely opens up some questions. And I'm reading from a Substack. This is from This Will Hold, is what they're called. You can find them at thiswillhold.substack.com. And there's a few loose ends here that deserve to be investigated. First of all, a company called ProV&V is one of only 2 federally accredited testing labs that approved last-minute updates to voting machines leading up to the 2024 election. And they were supposedly just minor bug fixes, but these fixes touched ballot scanners, reporting software, and audit files. And they all got these updates without anyone doing any serious looking into what they were doing, at least according to this Substack. They also point out how a Chicago company that was owned by Leonard Leo. Now, if you don't know Leonard Leo, he's the Federalist Society guy who's basically the architect of the right-wing takeover of our judiciary. It was his approval of various candidates for the Supreme Court that Donald Trump used as his list of people to pick. Leonard Leo, more than anyone else, is in charge for the rightward tilt of our judiciary. So this guy owned a Chicago company called Triplight. Now, I know about Triplight because I worked in information technology, and Triplight is mostly known for uninterruptible power supplies, those little battery backups that you have on computer systems so that if the power goes out, it can switch over to battery power and the computers don't crash, right? Okay, so he sells this company to a company called the Eaton Corporation for $1.65 billion. Eaton Corporation just happens to have a partnership with Peter Thiel's Palantir, the digital company that is currently hoovering up all of our personal data that was stolen by Doge. So what? He sold Triplight. It makes battery backups. Who cares? Here's why this is important. Battery backups aren't just a backup battery that you plug an electrical cord into. They also have digital connections to them, UPS devices, UPS cords that go from the device to the computer or the system so that they can communicate with that system to be able to update the drivers on the battery or whatever else. So these UPS backups are physically connected to the ES&S software machines, the vote counting machines, and the Dominion tabulator and central servers across the country. They all run on these Triplight UPSs that can do updates through their UPS ports. And the entire suite of software, the operating system that they're using, is a Windows operating system that automatically trusts device updates from UPS servers, from the Triplight servers. So, if the Eaton Company pushed an update to those uninterruptible power supplies, they could have gotten root-level access to the tabulation software without anyone knowing about it. And in the Dominion machines, the drivers are listed as optional, which means they can be updated remotely without triggering any audit or certification. The pieces are starting to come together, aren't they? Now, Eaton Corporation has an agreement with Palantir Technologies that are trying to secure all of our large data sets of information that Doge stole, and they have an ability to erase digital footprints. They have the ability to not only change the votes, but erase any auditing logs of the fact that they did change the votes. Well, obviously this can't happen, right? Because if they'd have changed the votes, then anybody could just go back to the ballots and do a hand count or a recount of the ballots and see that the count wouldn't match with what they put on the servers, and then we'd know that there was a coup underway. We'd know that they'd hacked the election. Well, here's where another piece of the puzzle comes in. There's a ballot scrubbing platform called Bulletproof, created by a longtime employee of Elon Musk and a current Doge employee. This is an app that scans ballot images. So all they would have to do with this system is to be able to graphically change the image of the ballot. Have software that takes the little filled-in oval off of Kamala Harris and puts it on Donald Trump. Then the other piece of the puzzle, Starlink. October 30th, 2024, just days before the election, Elon Musk activated 265 brand new low Earth orbit V2 mini satellites, each equipped with direct-to-cell technology. That means these satellites can talk through cell networks directly to the machines that are hooked up to them. Does not require routers. Connects from the satellite to the device, like, say, a smart UPS unit that's attached to voting and tabulating machines. So according to This Will Hold on Substack, from that moment on, commands could be sent from orbit, patch delivery becomes invisible to domestic monitors, and compromised devices could be triggered remotely. So, is this possible? They show a whole lot of data showing it's a little strange how Donald Trump had managed to swing all those swing states with margins that were just outside of the margins you need to trigger automatic recounts. We also see the turn-in of ballots, where there was an equal amount of turn-in of Republican Democratic ballots in a pattern that really doesn't match how ballots are usually turned in. Usually there's a whole bunch of Republican that come in and a whole bunch of Democrat that come in, and they kind of swap. It was just very anomalous how the votes came in. Data that made no statistical sense. So, is it possible that the 2024 election was hacked? Well, let's think about it. Donald Trump only won the 2016 election by cheating. Convicted of 34 felony counts in New York State for trying to cover up his hush money payments to Stormy Daniels and to others. And this gets lost in the shuffle, but it wasn't just those two. David Pecker and the National Enquirer had a whole catch and kill scheme for all sorts of stories coming out about Donald Trump. The American people were denied the full and accurate truth about that candidate. He purposefully defrauded the American people to hide his ill intents. So his first election was illegitimate. We did not know the truth about him. In his second election, he knew he was facing the possibility of prison if he did not win that election. So he instigated a violent coup on January 6th to try to remain in power. Then, after he's out of power, we find out he's hoarding documents at Mar-a-Lago and all the other crimes that he never managed to be held to account for. So when 2024 comes around, he's once again facing life behind bars if he loses. And Elon Musk, his companies, multiple, were under multiple investigations from multiple federal agencies. So it's not as if Donald Trump and Elon Musk didn't have massive interest in winning that election to save their own asses from investigations and prison. And it's not as if Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and all of these broligarchs in Silicon Valley don't know how computers and computer systems work, how to get around audits and logs. We've got the motive. We've got the incentive to cheat on the election. We've got the evidence that he has cheated on the past 2 elections. Now, I suppose some people say, well, Russ, if they got the elections hacked, then why didn't he just hack the election for Wisconsin State Supreme Court? I don't know. Again, I'm not so sure I believe in this conspiracy theory yet. But is it possible maybe that the hacking that they've done is something that they didn't want to do a second time to bring more attention to it? I don't know. Like I said, I'm not fully on board with this yet. But if an election could be hacked, don't you think Elon Musk and the broligarchs of Silicon Valley are just the guys to do it? Well, folks, that's all the time I've got for this week's Smoke Session. The Radical Russ Show is produced, directed, researched, written, recited, posted, and catered by me, Radical Russ Belville, and governed by Creative Commons Share-alike licensing. News clips and social media posts are reproduced under fair use copyright laws for commentary and analysis. My main theme is We Love the Herb by Herbal Nation, and interstitial music is by me and my drum machine, except for Fortunate Son, which is by John Fogerty and Creedence Clearwater Revival. And now for our post-credits scene. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there from yesterday, and of course to my dad, the Rockin' Johnny B. You can find him on Blue Sky at JBELVL, Jay Belville, on Blue Sky. He's 83 years old, and he's shocked to be this old. I can tell you that right off the bat. He is shocked to be 83 years old. He's a great dad, folks. I got to tell you, all of this I look shit up that I tell you about is his fault. He made me look shit up, and he always made me question authority and speak truth to power. So thank you, Dad, for that. Amazing story. My dad was a professional musician and a raging alcoholic. But despite that, despite being a raging alcoholic, I never saw it at home. It was surprising to me when I was 12 and my dad went into recovery, because I had no idea, right? He didn't drink at home. We didn't have alcohol in the house. I think I saw him drunk once in my life. Once when I was like 11 or so. He fell down on the sidewalk outside our front, and it freaked me out. Like, oh, daddies fall down. Oh, that's weird. Yeah, he pretty much kept it away from me and my brother at the time, and went into recovery. And after becoming clean and sober, went back to college at the age of 40. Back to college at Boise State University, got his degree in social work, and became the president of the student social workers while he was there. So he was well beloved by the classmates there at Boise State. And then took his degree and used it to help people. He became a drug and alcohol counselor, helped thousands of people overcome drug and alcohol addictions. He worked for ARC, which is the Association for Retarded Citizens. I think of what it was called at the time. They may have changed their name. But helping folks with developmental disabilities. What a remarkable story. John Belville, my dad, 83 years old. And Dad, I love you. Thank you so much for making me what I am. You can contact me by email at radicalruss@gmail.com. Call my message line at 877-RUSS-420. That's 877-877-420. And reach me on social media on Blue Sky as radicalruss.com and nowhere else. You can support this podcast financially by donating to Radical Russ on Venmo, Rad Russ on Cash App, or via PayPal on my website at radicalruss.com. Get this podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, my website, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and until next week, take care of each other.
You grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you